I can't count from here.
Can you? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Nguyen, and I'm excited to be your moderator today. I'm also the Business Development Director of Accedo. Accedo is a company that's been in the video solution streaming industry for 20 years already. And back then, we were actually one of the pioneers who helped broadcasters, telco operators, sports, and media entertainment companies to make the transition from the traditional broadcast to OTT streaming. So we helped them build the business case and convince them that OTT is going to be the next distribution platform. And today, we are here to also talk about what it needs and what it takes from all of us, what kind of challenges we all need to overcome to make XR the next content, fan engagement, and monetization platform as well. But before we dive into this panel discussion and before I introduce our guests to you, I want to dive deeper into the exciting announcement that Qualcomm has presented on stage yesterday. It's been in the work for a while, but we are very thrilled to present to you the launch of our XR Sports Alliance, powered by Accedo, HBS, and Qualcomm. And here's the reason why we are launching this alliance. With the respective position of our companies dealing with companies in hardware, telco operators, in sports, in video, we realize that everybody is actually trying to drive the same agenda or the agendas that are all interdependent. So that is why we are launching this alliance to make sure we all collaborate across industries. There's been many and many experiments in the past looking at the next generation immersive sports streaming experience. But it was only very few companies that actually took it to market and commercialized the XR sports services. So how do we enable this? Accedo, HBS, and Qualcomm, we have created a program. We call it the test framework. And let's just assume when a sports league, a federation, or a team is going to join the XR Sports Alliance, then we will take them through this program. We will look at how to produce immersive content streaming formats. We will build white label test applications for them to test with their own fans. But what we're also going to do is we're creating a global network of telco operators in all of the key markets that will also get access to these applications to test in their markets. We will then all collect the lessons learned reports, report it back to the alliance, so that every alliance member will benefit from all of these learnings. And we will rinse and repeat with more and more sports leagues and organizations to accelerate knowledge gathering. With the goal of accelerating development of XR sports services, as well as purpose-built XR hardware, we are now inviting all of you, ecosystem enablers, as well as XR OEMs, but of course especially XR sports leagues, federations, teams, broadcasters, and telco operators to join our alliance. Now, before I introduce you guys, we brought a very impressive video from one of our special guests. Let's have a look at this and start the discussion. Michael, thank you for bringing this video and sharing this video with us. So Mike Conley is the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He oversees the strategy and the daily operations of the organization's IT, business intelligence, and broadcast streams. In collaboration with Canon USA and the NBA since 2021, Conley and his team have deployed and refined Canon's free viewpoint volumetric system, resulting in the development of 4 distinct content platforms that enhance both the team operations and the fan experience. Thank you for joining us today, Mike.
Oh, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Next up is Johannes Franken. He leads a digital team at HBS that develops and delivers digital services of large-scale sports events. In this role, he has worked on 7 FIFA and 4 Rugby World Cups and many other large sporting events. If he would take a test, he would be attributed to House Hufflepuff. Applause, please. Thank you. Patrick Costello leads business development and partnerships in North America for Qualcomm's XR business. He's also a self-described long-suffering Minnesota sports fan.
Yes. The longest 4-sport fan base drought in the United States right now.
Patrick, usually for us Europeans, when we say long-suffering, it's very negative.
Yeah, it's a negative.
Michael, I'm going to start with you. You shared with us this impressive video of what you've been doing so far in the last couple of years. Could you tell us a little bit more how you're envisioning to bring this kind of experience to your fans today?
Yeah, this really started back in 2021, ahead of our planning for the 2022 All-Star Game, which we hosted in Cleveland. And the NBA usually brings a new set of technology to every city they go to ahead of implementing, the plan for the game. And Steve Helmuth at the time, who was in charge of global production for the NBA, brought the Canon system to our attention. What was unique about that, we had experience working with the 3D of the Intel platform before, and we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the process to be able to build that out, only to have some challenges with latency. That was about 15 minutes rendering time in order to get that back to the fans. So it was never really contextual to the live action that was happening on the floor. It was more of a tentpole type of highlight platform. When Steve brought the platform to us, free viewpoint, when I had heard that they had solved the latency challenges, to be honest, I was a little skeptical at first, but to the credit of their engineers, by leveraging the point cloud data and the volumetric capture along with voxel-based compositing that sits with image processing boxes directly behind the camera, they were able to limit that latency down to 3 seconds from real time. So that was a huge game changer for us. And over the period of time and working with that group now and having the platform for 3 years, we've defined some pretty unique use cases. Originally, when it was brought in, I think it was thought of as like the next generation Telecaster, right? The ability for your broadcasters to be able to use and manipulate the environment. The challenge I always had with that, you've got beautiful quality in 4K cameras, 8K cameras. The quality of what the end users seeing on their TVs and their sets is so good now that the expectation for the quality of the content is at a very high level. With this leveraging compositing and graphic-based compositing, there is this. You have to suspend reality a little bit to understand what you're seeing is a graphical representation of the players that are on the floor. So while we did follow through and use that for replays within broadcast, there was a wealth of other use cases that came off of that. As a technologist in sports, my holy grail is to figure out ways to bring the fan as close as possible to the action. And it's a relentless attention to try to do that over time. And this is, for the first time, we have the ability literally to put the fan right in the middle of the playing surface, next to the players in real time for them to be able to watch the size and the speed of what's taking place on the floor. And so when we realized the opportunity was well beyond just the next generation Telecaster, I think the ideas just started to spawn, week over week, month over month. And I know we kind of kicked it off and talked about 4 unique content sources. There's really about 7 that we've been able to develop over the 3 years. Yeah, with the limitless perspectives, replay for broadcast being one of them. Fully immersive highlights, individuals being able to put on headsets and literally, see the game through Donovan Mitchell's perspective and the play through their perspective. We've dabbled within mixed reality and tabletop within the Apple Vision Pro. And I know there's some highlights that are out there about that. Virtually enhanced highlights. I'm really big on this. I've got kids at home that are part of the gaming generation, and when you can think about the next generation of viewership in Gen Alpha, as they start to come into spending power, we have a real problem of trying to solve for the minimum attention spans that they have. They're not used to linear TV. They're not used to sitting down for long periods of time, and they're part of that gaming generation. So being able to do mashups with Fortnite and Pokemon to be able to create virtualized environments while still being able to provide the context of the real game on top of that is really, really exciting. And then you scale down from there, interactive live viewing. You can do live, a telecast and allow the fans on their end to be able to define their perspectives if they want to watch the game. We've been trained in our generations to watch a game through 7 to 19 cameras that's dictated by a director or a producer. Mm-hmm. And, I was part of that, choose your own adventure generation that you would read the books and be able to choose your outcomes, right? Well, this is now we have the ability to put the power in the hand of the end user for them to dictate the way they want to consume the game. And that is really, really exciting. And then lastly, really think about that as a player and a coach development tool. Really quick fun fact about our team this last year, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland both were out early in the season from injuries. And we were able to reproduce their playbook for them through the platform. And as they were coming back and recovering from their injuries, they would literally put on the headset and watch the plays, the playbook that they had from their perspective, from actual game highlights that they participated in, which is really unique. And we've tried that in the past with our players, and they were always like, this is too cumbersome, this is a headache. They loved jumping in and using this. So it was a really good moment. As well as, from video coaches. Everything is in the inches now on the competition side within sports. And, having the perspective to understand spacing on a floor, injury prevention, or even being able to have different perspectives to see unique angles that weren't available before are all now possible. So, and then advertising, obviously being able to generate, sponsorship revenue off of the highlights and the integration authentically into the platform. So those are 7 things we've done over the past 3 years, and it's been really exciting. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Johannes, seeing that there are so many use cases that Mike and his team has already worked out for immersive streaming, what does immersive streaming mean for HBS's traditional broadcast business?
I mean, I have the privilege of working in a TV company and looking after all the things that are not TV. And with those really big sporting events, for me, the big opportunity there is to, and that might sound a bit cheesy, to democratize those events. So giving people that normally don't have the chance to attend those events to be there, and be that because you simply can't afford to fly around the world to watch somebody else playing soccer, or because you don't have the physical abilities to travel that far. And for me, it's an opportunity of getting fans closer, as you said, to those events, and that is, for me, one of the big chances. The other aspect of that is you can create these money can't buy moments. And even for somebody that probably watches more Harry Potter than soccer, standing in the middle or right between the 2 teams lining up in the tunnel right before the World Cup match gives me, even now thinking about it, gives me the chills. And that is really those moments you can recreate in a virtual environment that you can't do on television. The fact when you turn your head and you have one of the most important coaches of the planet yelling at you is an experience that you can't transport on television, and it's not coming across like that. So for me, that is an opportunity to develop a completely different way of storytelling of the event for a different audience. I mean, there are people that are following the matches in a very enthusiastic way, in a way how they are trained to consume it, as you said. but there is also a growing group that is not interested in that. And for me, there is a big opportunity in creating a tournament experience through these technologies.
So I think we don't have to discuss about whether there's this vision, right? But the demand is there. You as a team, and you work very close with the NBA, there is this demand. The technology is also there. But the question is more, how do we get there, right? You've been working at Qualcomm for 23 years? 23?
Yes,
Yes.
remarkably.
Why do you think now is the time that we have to facilitate and enable this cross-industry collaboration to make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, we really believe that this market should develop in a really open, healthy way with a lot of consumer choice. So, our job as technologists and tech enablers is to make sure that we have continued to improve generation over generation the industry-leading roadmap we have on hardware and software. So, I think that, despite what all the billions have been invested in this market, we still have so much to learn about what people want from devices and use cases. Every survey that we do about the market, sports continuously comes up as like a top 3 interest for consumers. So there's still a lot to figure out. I think we need to figure it out together. And no one company should really have to invest all on their own to try to figure this out together. So I think now is a perfect time for XR Sports Alliance. And that's why we launched it with you guys. So super excited.
Speaking about all of the complexities and challenges that we need to solve today, one of the biggest things, and I think it's not an easy thing to change, but are the complexity around sports rights, right? I mean, you're smiling. In the US, it's even more complicated. And we just want to look into your heads and minds a little bit. Mike, what do you think will it take for the sports leagues, the rights owners, to actually start thinking about carving out XR media rights?
I think this is an excellent question, and a very timely question, and a complex one, to tell you the truth. Infrastructure is a big part of that. When you think about leagues and the fair play across the board, if you've got 30 teams, every venue has to have the same infrastructure available to be able to produce the games in the same way to distribute to the fans at the end of the day. And being able to roll that infrastructure out across 30 different venues is a complex effort, right? Some are multi-use, some are not owned by the team, some are owned by counties, cities. There's layers of bureaucracy that can play into that. The NBA is moving closer to enterprise solutions that will, I think one day mandate a set of infrastructure that will get all teams there over time. But you have to get to a point where you can build predictable, committed viewership to be able to create a new rights category. Without predictable viewership, it's really hard to be able to put a value against those rights. And I think we're still in such an early point in this technology. There's challenges to scale right now. When you think about all the data that is tied to capturing this content that provides all those limitless perspectives, the compression and the codec that's necessary to send that at scale, at volume, in a very cost-effective way is still something that has to be solved for. And then additionally, it has to coexist with both linear and D2C rights without cannibalizing the value those create before that takes over and becomes another slice of the onion that can be monetized along the way. So there are hurdles there, but like any technology, it will evolve and catch up. But the biggest thing is, I know Qualcomm's working on the hardware side, and the end users at home with their bandwidths and everything else. We're getting closer, but we're not quite there yet.
Johannes, you're working with European federations leagues too. Are you facing? Of course you are, but how are you facing these complexities around rights, and how do you envision this to be solved within even our XR Sports Alliance?
Thankfully, I don't think it's my job to solve it. So, but of course, I'm confronted with that, or we are confronted with that complexity. And when we think about new services and new products where we believe there is a value, those need to fit in those frameworks. And when we see sometimes the life cycle of rights agreements, and I mean the ones that are in the make, and when we look at the life cycle of that and compare them to a technical life cycle, I think we have probably 2 or 3 generations of technology within one rights agreement. So for me, one of the big challenges is how can we start developing similar models or a standard that we're talking about? Is there a chance of getting the big sports federations together, agreeing on a way of how to structure rights? Do we believe that VR rights are a dedicated slice? Are there a subset of AV rights? I think today a lot of federations have their own definition, and that is already starting with tracking data. Is tracking data a subset of AV? Is it a standalone right? What happens with XYZ data? Is that, and all of those things are not really defined, and they're very individual, and the contracts that I'm aware of, they are structured in a very different way. And I believe if there is a chance that we get a bit of harmony into those agreements, everybody around the table benefits, be that the rights originator, are those marketing organizations that are interested in those rights, are those media organizations that are acquiring those rights. I believe that everybody would benefit from a world where those things are more agreed on, at least how we measure them. I think it's probably unrealistic to achieve that across the board, but getting some standards of saying this is how we slice it, that I believe would make a lot of sense.
So what I'm hearing is we have technology challenges, we have, rights challenges and complexities, and what we need is a standardization across the board, ideally globally, so that we can actually accelerate this time to market for everyone, right? And everybody in the ecosystem would actually benefit from this. So maybe let's talk a little bit about, the monetization strategy behind this, right? I remember in one of our workshops with HBS in Paris, one of your executives mentioned, whatever we propose to the sports companies either has to grow their existing audience or attract new audiences for them or generate significant revenue. It's a difficult question, Mike, but how do you measure this kind of audience engagement? What is success to you for this kind of use cases?
Yeah, and we've been able to generate revenue off of the platform. It's not enterprise-changing revenue to this point, but there are monetization opportunities that sit within that environment, and it's primarily because you can authentically integrate partners into the viewing experience outside of a standard pre-roll or an interstitial or something else. I mean, they can own different actions and parts of that experience that are being viewed and experienced firsthand. But the real unlocking, I want to go back to that, and I've said this several times, is volume of scale. If you can get it to the point where you have broad distribution and consumption on the other end, now all of a sudden you can start to layer in thoughts around subscription services, enhanced or premium subscription services for people to be able to access this layer. Side-by-side streams. You've seen the Manning cast and everything else be successful. We've dabbled in producing games that allowed fans to vote on different angles they wanted to see, and the retention time that was kept in that process was really eye-opening. So if you create the engagement and the layer of engagement that's there, it doesn't matter if it's a blowout or if it's a close game. People are going to stay there because there's a sense of community and involvement that people have in that experience. When we get to a point where now we can take both the on-demand experience, where we're incorporating our partners, and then potentially put a subscription-based layer on top of that, that can open up real opportunities for revenue. And then think about, me representing the team side, we have limited distribution because of the way that U.S. rights are based. You have your local rights, you have your national rights. Very different, I know, from the way they do it in Europe. But if you get to a point where all of a sudden you don't have those limitations and you can start to distribute, and slice that saying, this is our US-based audience, and you have a subscription fee for that, but all of a sudden you've got your Chinese-based audience and you're delivering different experiences because you have different outputs for that virtualized environment. Now you're taking what was a very regionalized business model and you're extrapolating that to a global audience that can really generate a lot of revenue. But there are layers and layers of complexity in those media rights, and everybody's looking to get and they're paying big money for those rights too. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, right? So it'll come to fruition eventually, and I think we'll get there. But it will be it'll be something that we all have to collectively try to solve for across the board, and somebody's going to have to, be the first mover in trying to kind of break that model.
And you were talking about the distribution of content, right? But we also have to think about how to get the hardware into the hands of the users. So the distribution of the hardware. Patrick, can you explain to us a little bit how you're envisioning the role of the telco operators in this?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of think of three things when I think of operators. Of course, they've been mission-critical partners for the industry in the deployment of fundamental technologies for the mobile ecosystem. Really important partners for Qualcomm. You can't underestimate the power of the distribution they have. They touch 9 billion smartphone users in the world. So, number one, distribution. Two is partnerships. So. It's such a competitive market for them that they not only have to differentiate with price and service and quality of network and bundling, but they go out and create partnerships. A lot of the major operators have partnered with major sports leagues and teams. I think that's going to bear fruit for XR at some point once we crack this code on the device and services. And then last but not least is technology, right? So believe it or not, one day we will have cellularly embedded glasses that we all walk around with. I think many people have egg on their face trying to predict when, but I think there's still universal, confidence that we are going to have connected glasses, smart glasses that give us confidence to leave the smartphone behind for a good portion of our day. So all those investments that the operators are making on quality of service, split rendering, hosting, network slicing, they're gonna hopefully pay off and pay dividends for them once we're at that point. So.
And speaking about that hardware, let's talk about hardware for sports and video streaming for a bit. I mean, Apple Vision Pro is great. The Quest 3 is good. We have great devices out there already. But sports is a very social experience, right? You want to share this experience with your friends, your family, when you're sitting on the couch. So what is the ideal hardware that you could envision for sports? How would it look like? How would it feel? How would it work?
Powered by Snapdragon.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be lean and it has to be intuitive, right? The barrier for entry has to be easy, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I love all the VR headsets and the capabilities that are tied to those. And with the advent of the Apple Vision Pro, you kind of see the capabilities of a mixed reality environment where you can still see reality, but yet have that augmented experience. But the headset's very heavy, right? It's not to a point yet where you're going to feel comfortable walking around and allowing that to augment your life, let alone a sports viewing experience. There's a lot of money and investment in that space to figure this out. And as technology and the chips get smaller and smaller and edge computing starts to advance, I think you're going to see a real revolution take place. And it will one day look like this. I know Qualcomm's working on some solutions with some partners as well to revolutionize that space as well.
Just to comment on that, if you think about, we see it possibly developing and different from mobile, right? If you think about mobile space, the richest person in the world is using the same phone that everyone in this room is using, right? But in XR we see custom form factors developing in certain sectors like defense and medical and fitness. So why not sports? Why not sports viewing? So this is an area we're really taking a close look at. We're working with our ODM partners to look at what could custom designs look like for this purpose-built kind of device for sports, and then we'll hopefully get an ecosystem together to push it forward.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I see we're up on time. Please feel free to reach out to us. And I want to conclude with a very simple metaphor from a person that told me. A rising tide floats all boats. So be it a small boat, a big boat, a yacht. So I think what we're trying to accomplish with the XR Sports Alliance is we are the tide, right? And when we succeed in setting off the foundations, the frameworks, the standards, then everybody in the ecosystem will actually benefit from this. And I'm not just saying this because my boss is probably watching this video, but thank you all for joining us. Thank you for our panelists and speakers. Talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.